Why Wells Fail is now live, streaming live to LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and more. Lloyd Brown, welcome to your show, man.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm all good, Steve. It's hot, though.
Yeah,
Summer has arrived in the panhandle of Texas.
it's hot. That's what Trump says. The U.S. America is hot again. I bet it's hot out there in the oil field, too.
It is. I was just doing my computer-based training that we have, and it's on heat stress. And, you just got to be cognitive of that.
Yeah. I'm going to be riding some horsies this weekend, so I'll be cognizant of it for sure.
You gotta make sure you got a good hat on that old head of yours, right?
Don't worry. I learned that lesson a long time ago. I sunburned. Ooh, baby, on the top of the head.
Good.
So today we're talking about what's the difference between clients and customers. That was a topic you wanted to discuss. We've been learning about what goes on in the decision-making process. You've got a team that goes out and creates relationships. So let's start there. Why is this important topic to you, Lloyd?
It's a very important topic because it's really is the conversation and what you're providing a commodity, something that almost anybody can provide, and what is the focus? Is the focus on selling or is the focus on learning? And that's a real balance between a transactional relationship versus a relational relationship. So that it's very important. There's a lot of companies that on the service company side that in the completion industry, they sell a service like pressure pumping and they move to the next well. The real investment of the success of that well, they really don't worry about that so much because they've generated their revenue and their whole purpose is to go make more revenue. And going back and going, what did we do wrong? How do we do that better? And did we help our customer really ultimately meet their goals? So that's a customer and a product and or service type mentality. And one thing that it tends up happening is a lot of products get commoditized. Because if you have something really unique, people are going to do their best, number one, to copy you, and then number two, in the marketplace to make it more commoditized where it's not unique. And in a servant-based relationship, where somebody becomes your client, a client indicates more of a fiduciary relationship. It's a responsibility, and it's coming along beside that person or that company, and it's understanding truly what is important. Like last week, we were meeting with a company. We were scheduled to have an hour meeting, and we were going through our process, talking about helping them understand what we're looking at when we're looking at the geology. But the conversation really went much more dynamic when we started talking about hitting their financial goals, understanding where they wanted to invest their capital. Was it more capital effective and efficient to invest it in prevention in the completion process of their well, where that is a capitalized expenditure versus an operating expense, and how our process helps them be more effective and efficient in both areas. And so and then one of the really cool things is when you go into that depth, I learned some strategies and some different ways to look at operating profitability for this company. And so that's something that's really different in a client-based relationship. Is there's learning that goes both ways because there's a constant sharing of information, and the trust is at a level that you talk about the things that are most important other than just price.
Yeah, that's when I started my agency, Lloyd, that was the mindset that I wanted. It's in my industry, there's most charged by the hour. And so what do? They got to write down what they did every hour. Then they hand that over to the customer. The customer has to audit it, right? And so it becomes the focus is on just, is this report accurate? Did I really get what I think I'm getting? Instead of meeting and talking about what is it that we want to do, and then just doing what needs to be done to get them there. Within reason, right? And that's what you're talking about. It's kind of cool when you have a conversation with them and you learn some other things you didn't think about, or maybe you hadn't considered that, oh my gosh, we could help you with this as well and this as well.
Absolutely. And it goes from telling about a product versus teaching and explaining, and also setting the foundation of why you do what you do. And we have great clarity on why we do what we do. And that resonates with a lot of companies, and it doesn't resonate with others, because, if you're in a place where you're just expected to do a high volume really consistently with no interruptions, you can get there, but the purpose is to meet a specific, rate of production goal, versus is every well that we're creating, our product, widget, whatever you call it, is it of the highest quality that provides the longest return on that investment? And it's kind of like investing. You can put it in a CD. You can put it in, and you have interest rate risk, right? If you go into a CD, or if you go into bonds, or if you go into stocks, everything that you do, you need to have a why for what you're looking for. And then it's always a measurable, were we successful? Or if we weren't, why we weren't. And that's the second part about it when working with our team today. What we do after we've implemented our process and the well's been completed is almost as important as what we did leading up to that, because that's where the rubber meets the road in that real relationship, is the service and providing the metrics after the relationship has been consummated through the exchange of funds. And you can tell I'm trying to remove the word sell, because selling is it's pushy. It's not a collaborative type of relationship, and that's the difference in my mind and how we define it in our company.
Yeah, I think oftentimes, incentives drive the outcomes, and a lot of times a team doesn't know what to incentivize with a group of salespeople, right? So they give them a quota, and then the focus becomes on meeting the quota. And the quota can mean sometimes getting someone to say yes, even though maybe it's not the best thing for them. And when the process that you're talking about, imagine those conversations, you're sitting and you're getting to strategize business conversation about what an outcome, a realistic financial outcome could be on this investment, that's different. And oftentimes you're impacting their culture for the better. Many times the way that we run our accounts, we've influenced other items in that company that was of value to them. That wasn't even, intended, but they got value. They took a strategy, they took a software, a tool or something, and implemented it and got lift. And that's fulfilling for me.
And that's the most fulfilling part is knowing that your reputation's intact.
Mm.
And that is one of the major changes when we went from smart to becoming refined, is focusing on the reputation of every one of our team members first. Because, if we protect their reputation and we're focused on relationship, both internally and externally, the things that we do will protect them. And if you think about it, how many companies have gone from heroes to zeros because what they were promoting, pushing a product, they were over promising, under delivering, and it's at that point, and there's one company out there that I could speak of specifically. I'm not going to, but they went from being the industry leader in 2016 and 17 to today, and had a market capitalization in the billions, to today they're almost bankrupt, and they actually got acquired by another company for pennies on the dollar. And it was because they had a company that was built around a test, laboratory test, that promoted the product instead of focusing on the results in the field and the why behind it. And that was a great lesson learned, unfortunately, at the expense of another company. And the reputation today still is a stigma in the industry if you mention it. And so the making sure that our processes and that our why we do what we do is ultimately to protect the reputation of our employees, but also our customers. And they're right there together. We want to make sure that we're in a place that there's never buyer's remorse, because buyer's remorse is a reputational damage, both for Refined and our client. And so that's where our mindset is making sure that when we're given trust, we earn that trust. And that's rule number one.
In any relationship, there's mistakes made. And in this stance, this relationship stance, mistakes become, of course, something's going to go wrong, but don't worry about it. It's going to be addressed, and we'll do what's right. That's what's cool about this relationship. Imagine that, that company you were talking about that got acquired, they would go out and champion their product, but then they had someone internally with their customer that championed their product as well. Later on, it turns out maybe that product wasn't the best thing, and that person who took a risk and advocated for them is now looking like, look, you led us the wrong way, internal employee. And so doing the process in a relationship way keeps that person safe, keeps their reputation as well.
Absolutely. And ultimately, the leader's reputation of the organization is the one that should take the hit. Mm-hmm. Because the culture that is developed is those things that result in the employee being the one that took the blame. Ultimately, when we have failure, it's either we had processes that weren't followed and it was an intentional failure, And that sometimes happens, and you have to ask a team member to leave. But most of the time when you are honest about it was a lack of training and or a lack of communicating what we were doing. And we're always first to point the blame at the person rather than the process. And sometimes, I love what we do in EOS is there's a get it, want it capacity to do it. And you can have really wonderful people, high quality people that in the role that they're in your company, they may not get it. They want it, but then ultimately they don't have the capacity to do it. And then that's being unkind by putting them in a place where they're going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's been a couple of times since we've had refined that we've had to make that assessment and that choice. And it's always hard because you're dealing with somebody emotionally, but you have to make that decision. Same thing goes into the relationship that we have with our clients. If we don't get it, if we don't understand them, we may want the business, we may have the capacity to provide product, but we can't provide process unless we understand them. And to understand them, we have to get it. And getting it is, it really goes back into what Zig Ziglar always said: helping others get what they want, you're going to get what you want. And so that's really, Stephen Covey said, seek to understand, then to be understood. It's always about the getting what they want, what they need, and then being able to provide that. That's the important part.
So how does one do that when you're walking into a place and they've got their blaster shields on, they're expecting to be a victim of a quota conversation? How do you turn that around?
A lot of times is understanding why they feel the way they feel. Where has buyer's remorse entered into their relationships? And then understanding what the metrics are that they're measuring their performance by. And if internally their measurement is quotas on how many wells they get completed, and it's not, are they healthy? Are they really providing the optimum resource? But it's about helping them just get it put away. If we say yes to that need, and recently we went through a process that was a bid process, and we had to look back and go, hey, is that really fit us? And the answer is no. It's no. And so when you go through that process, we're expending resources in people's time, their efforts and their energies for something we know is almost a no probability because they don't know why our technology is any better. We can put it in there. Yeah, we've got this. But the real thing is providing a commodity at a commodity price that is a transactional relationship, and that's a customer, not a client.
Yeah, that's a trap. Oftentimes you think about, wow, that would be some good revenue. But ultimately, when you compromise that situation, something goes wrong, you get the blame, because you stepped in a situation that wasn't optimized for your process to excel. And so you try to reconfigure a new solution that doesn't appreciate all the thinking behind your product and your process and your why.
Well, and that's usually around need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in a needy environment, you need sales. Compromise is something you're going to battle all the time. And I'll be quite frank, it's ingrained in us. For the last 40 years of my career, we've always been into a bidding type environment, thinking, hey, if we just get the opportunity, we'll be able to transition from a customer relationship to a client. But purchasing managers aren't. They're judged. They're rated on how cheap they get something. They're also rated, can they deliver, those kind of things. So there's that reputational risk, but they're not judged on the end result of how well the well came about.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're sitting there, yeah, we're building a relationship with the purchasing managers whose metrics don't match the value that we can provide to somebody. And so you're kidding yourself on how you can really bring value. You can't. And you're at that point making yourself like everybody else.
Yes.
So it takes discipline, it takes conviction.
For sure, conviction. When you don't stick to that, then you're just they don't appreciate any unique difference that you have, because you came down, all right, I'll meet your price on that, and then you just turned all the value that you could have offered, or even a conversation about later, let's look at the numbers and see how this comes out. That's that they're gone. You lost your leverage.
Well, and I don't think I disagree with the term leverage. You've lost your trust, because you have shown that you'll morph into to do anything to get a buck. And I'm guilty. I've been guilty here at Refine. I'm going to moment of vulnerability, out of wanting to please not only my team, but also to please a new relationship, jumped into acting like everybody else. And in retrospect, again, that's rule number 10, the learning rule. We got to learn from it. And, the other day I heard, man, I wish I could quote who actually said this, but this is not my original thought. But he said the only failure that is a permanent failure is one that you don't learn from. It's just a lesson. It's not a failure. Failures become lessons, which become the foundation that great things happen. And I love Roger Federer. He gave a commencement speech, and he talked about what percentage of the points that he won. And he only won barely over 50% of all the points he played. And he's known as one of the greatest tennis players of all time, right? But he knew what he was measuring. He knew, and he was constantly learning, and he was never focused on the last point, but he was always focused on being present in that next moment. And that's why he was so good. Scotty Scheffler yesterday, I mean, you don't talk about a guy that gets it. And he's asking himself, the other thing about learning, about being in relationship, is asking the really hard questions and receiving hard questions without getting defensive. And, but it's also knowing your why. And, like he spoke about, his why is God first, family second, golf is third. And look at the results that has given him. It's unbelievable.
I was thinking about one of my clients, they wanted me to change up how I do everything, and they're good. They're good customers. But the light bulb wasn't going on about becoming a client, a relationship. And sometimes you got to let that set and let that time go by, or let that, whatever the pain of that started that conversation, help them reconsider, but you have to stick to your guns. I think it's a matter of respect, even though maybe the revenue didn't come in, or what opportunities might have been available.
But it's also about what happens to your mindset in that, because in a customer commodity relationship, a vendor transaction relationship, do you ever feel really valued for anything other than providing price?
Mm-mm.
And why does anybody want to stay in a relationship where they don't feel valued?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it went to my head. It's like, where could I have demonstrated the relationship value better, because it wasn't landing. But maybe it is, I didn't get it in that moment. But
And then again, it's I've usually found that it was I was not effectively communicating in a manner and method and I hadn't spent enough time with that other person to create the ability to communicate in a way that they could hear me, or that I was actually hearing them correctly. And again, that's the deal. When you're in a relationship, you're giving grace to each other through that part of it, and really, you want to step on each other's toes, because that means that you're not settling.
mm-hmm. So how do you have a conversation with your they're not your salespeople? What do you call your reps?
Well, they're relationship managers,
Okay.
and it's really hard to change what you've always called folks. But again, relationships about being consistent. Relationships are knowing what they need so you can provide what they need. It's always customer focused first, because Zig's right. We'll get what we need by making sure we're providing. And that goes a lot of trust. And that's also, it's biblical. You plant and you water, and that's what we're to do with our relationships. It's nurturing, and that may sound all, soft and all those kind of things, but it's being responsible for the relationship and caring enough about the other person, and the other company more or equally to yourself.
It's not that it doesn't work. I mean, you have clients that are thrilled. They do case studies. You have a patent. You have these things. How do you incentivize relationship building?
Boy, that's a tough word to say. I don't know, because incentivize sounds like you're pushing, right? And I would rather use the word, it's just building trust through constant, consistent communication and making sure there's clarity. I love the Boy Scouts, and we use what the Boy Scouts teach, and they teach the EDGE method. And EDGE is an acronym, right?
Yeah. Educate.
Explain, not educate, explain.
Demonstrate.
Guide. Right. And so that's our role. We really want to be guides to help people see the path that we're on, right? When you think about a Sherpa that helps people get to the top of the Himalayas and they're climbing the tallest mountain in the world, they have guides that help them get there, that know the pathway, that know the pitfalls, know the dangers. And the Sherpas get this amazing reputation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they've been wonderful guides. That's where we see ourselves, but we have to explain what we're doing. We have to demonstrate it, i.e. case studies, i.e. the science. And then as we're guiding, that's the part of showing the results. That's the service after the sale. And really the enabling is then the client having the ability to replicate that and gain more knowledge, gain more revenue, become more profitable, become more sustainable as a company. And if we're using the EDGE method and we're becoming great guides, we'll be sought out. But you don't do that and be in a hurry.
True. Your wells that you get to service are performing well. They don't fail.
They don't fail.
Excellent conversation, Lloyd. So let's say I've been listening to you and I want to have a conversation. I want to get, I want some explaining. How do they connect with you?
Well, with me personally, it's Lloyd.Brown. It's refinecompletions.com. And, or they can reach out through our website and we have contact us, or they can hit us up on any of the platforms that we're live on right now. And we will get back with them.
All right. Customer and clients. What do you call it? I guess you're just a commodity or a service, right? If you just you have just customers.
So, is your relationship with vendors or trusted advisors?
Yeah. So reach out to Lloyd, get refined, move from customer to client. Another great episode of Why Wells Fail. We're always on at this time every week. So we'll see you on the next episode. Send in your questions. Is there a topic you're interested in? Like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next episode of Why Wells Fail.